So today I just want to take a moment to discuss the topic of the field of Ayurveda. And this was a discussion. So I'm in progress for my yoga teacher training. I am learning with Kat at the YMCA right now for the YTT training, which will go through April. And this has been pretty extensive and amazing and challenging and enlightening. And the entire time, I'm just finally getting over a sickness where I've had an excess buildup of mucus in my lungs, and I've been very imbalanced. And the strange thing is, you go through illnesses like this, and we are all bound to have these experiences in life. Nothing will ever be perfect all the time. So one aspect of being sick and going through this sickness, this respiratory illness, is that it really forced me to have to recognize, has been difficult for me, how important it is to rest, how important it is to allow ourselves nurturing, kindness, compassion, self-care, and to understand what it is that is causing this. What is it that I can do to help myself to heal and feel better? And in this process, I went through a lot of this process was not just a physical, it involves so heavily the mentality, the emotional experiences. All of these different aspects of the human experience are equally affected when it seems like, Western medicine would typically focus in on that physical aspect. And so in learning yoga and in unifying the mind, body, spirit, and understanding what it means to begin to gather awareness on our true potential, I have been seeking answers in a bit of a different way, I suppose, trying to apply the knowledge and the wisdom that I'm gaining through these experiences, because it has proven to be so helpful and on a soulful level, not just a superficial, make it look good kind of level, which often in my experience of Western medicine and prescriptions and the promotion of the practices that we do culturally, everything, it is really difficult sometimes to understand what is really best for us and how can we truly help ourselves to feel better. The thing about Western medicine and the typical approach, even the fact that pharmaceuticals have advertisements, this kind of stuff, it's a bit alarming because of our consumerist and capitalist, organization in this country. But beyond that, it's kind of encouraging a lot of detachment from ourselves and from the awareness that truly is required if we're hoping for these results to be real for us. And I think a lot of times the way we're attaching ourselves to these outcomes, or this idea in mind of what it is we think we want. Hang on, I'm losing my... The whole thing is, if I turn on the TV or look at a magazine today, what ideas are being promoted in terms of beauty, in terms of health and wellness, or practices, or what anything even means these days? I believe there's a lot of harm nestled into these seeds. And in every moment when we are taking in the influences of all of these different sources of media and the way people carry ideas through as well, it's like it becomes very challenging to differentiate where these influences are from, what's really important, and how this relates to us as people, as individuals with such unique inner and outer compositions. And when I say inner and outer, really what I'm talking about is there's a version of this experience that no one else in this world will be able to comprehend other than you yourself, in connection with yourself, in connection with your senses, in connection with the organism that is your physical body. And everything is connected. So things reflect on the outside as well. Something interesting about Ayurveda is that by looking at a person, oftentimes you can begin to already kind of know what is their dosha, what is their dominant element, where are they nestled when it comes to these spectrums of qualities, characteristics that are kind of cued in by the balance in these elements, everything. It reflects. And one way to make this make more sense was a previous realization that I had about really it was about my own personal experience in the younger portion of my life where I was extremely misguided. And I thought that the body that I wanted was so different than the one that I was in. And it caused a lot of disruption. It gave me a lot of issues with self-esteem, confidence, decisiveness, anything. It really, really weakened my own sense of autonomy or any sense of empowerment that I would have held for myself and my ability to make change, etc. I got into a lot of great ruts. I guess I felt stagnant many times for great periods of time, into periods of depression, and the way that my body reflected that depression was with excessive weight, excessive amounts of consumption of food, trying to satiate some sort of it felt like there was an endless pit inside of me, essentially. And I believe that pit actually formed because of an avoidance that I had to addressing my own traumas. And instead of doing that, it was a lot of me directing myself any direction other than that. A lot of avoidance and escapism. And one really easy way for avoidance and escapism is consumption of substances, of food, sensation-seeking, anything. Really something that Ayurveda discusses, or that we have discussed in this field, it's among the realizations that the symptoms we're experiencing, the disease and the suffering that we go through in our lifetimes, the things that really hinder our vitality and bring us a lot of hardship, they decrease our wellness. And this is also known as stress. It's also known as mental health disorders, anything where things are really lacking balance and harmony. We fail to recognize what is truly the cause, and we'll often be more focused on the symptoms in this style of addressing these kinds of challenges. And I think I may have just taken a little sidestep on this again with the path. I apologize, because my dosha tends to be more vata. I am definitely more in the air, flighty. I tend to jump topics a lot, but I believe that deep within, I sense that there is a fire inside. I mean, and this is the sense of purpose, and this is the drive that I am really trying, because there's something really meaningful in this, and I can feel it, I can sense it, and I understand what it has done for me. Something that I'm understanding is that there is such value in this wisdom that it's like a necessity to share. It is no longer just like this desire, to want to be the one to say it or anything. The fact that it's there, it matters. It is potentially something that could really change the way we approach the problems we're facing, I believe it could bring so much relief for so many people if we could understand how to change our perspective when it comes to like how we're thinking about any of this and getting it back to the elements. So I'm already throwing these like terms out there like vata. If you've never studied anything Ayurveda, that's okay. It's never a bad time to begin learning on a topic that you're not familiar with. There is always the potential to learn until our very last day. Anybody who is getting, higher in that chronological age, and I'll talk about age in a minute, I just want to especially encourage all these years when they said, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And even if for 20 years plus we have been stuck in our ways, it is not impossible. It is not too late. Every single day we have another chance. So take this chance right now. I mean, this could potentially change everything. The real question is, are we okay? Are we happy? Are we feeling satisfied? Are we feeling like we are literally functioning physically, mentally, and spiritually at our optimal levels? I mean, I always believe that constant flux is undeniable. Change is constant. That's the only constant you can believe for sure. Who am I to tell you what to believe? As time goes on, things change. We cannot deny. The more we try to grip onto the past, the more we try to solidify things that are in flux, that is going to lead to a lot of struggles. The thing is, part of the harmony is allowing for the flux, and understanding how context and different periods of our lives may influence overall what this outcome tends to look like. And a lot of times it's like I can like zoom back to my past and consider how my body, how things have just been so very different at different periods in time. I can identify periods of great stress surrounding very large life events or health challenges or unexpected, anything. These things definitely have a role to play in what is happening with us and our own genetic makeup. Is kind of like, you've been given these cards, right? This is your hand you got to play with. You don't have the option to get a new deck. This is it, okay? We come into this world, and even before we literally come out of our mother's womb, we will be in utero in our process of development. And already we are experiencing change and growth. We are influenced by everything coming into the mother's body. And as it comes to us and as it helps to create our tissues and our connecting pieces that then function as our physical organism, is also this beauty in the conscious development. There are building blocks already in place. You are composed of such a beautifully unique combination of these elements that the thing about that is too, it does include everything, a little bit of everything. Very, very rarely will it seem that we are absolutely dominated with one. Like, we may ourselves fluctuate, and of course in response to the environment and what we put into our bodies. All of these things have an influence. So that's the beauty in this too, because you can influence your own composition, thinking in terms of what we're putting into ourselves, what we're consuming, whether it be this nutrition or even the ways we think about what we're doing, the environments we're allowing ourselves to remain in, the choices we make in thinking about what it is that really matters or how we can justify harmful habits. I mean, all of this comes into this situation to add into this idea of the overall wellness and in our experience of this life. So a lot of times I think we might not realize something is harmful for us until the results and effects and consequences of that, whatever it may be, if it's a substance or an action that we're partaking in, or being around certain influences that are harmful or reinforcing of things that are not helpful in our own personal frequencies. Like, everything is a choice. So if we're beginning to see the pattern, one really important key piece in this, it just starts with taking a deep breath. You have to connect with self, connect with you. Ask yourself, hey, are we okay right now? Like, really? Is there any pain? Is there any negative, like, nervousness? Are we in this realm of, this is not pleasant, okay? If it's not pleasant, ask yourself, what's going on? How am I feeling? Notice if you're hot or cold. Notice if you're feeling tense or rigid or maybe soft. Are you sweating? Are you turning red? I mean, are we moving fast? Are we stuck in place? These are cues, and they can help us to understand. If we're having a hard time answering that question, am I okay? Or if the answer is, I'm not okay. Because holy cow, what a nerve-wracking way to feel for anyone. This thought, I'm not okay. What do you do then, So take that deep breath, check in, notice. Just sit with yourself for a moment. Give yourself a moment of your own undivided attention. It's really hard these days with all the demand of everything. And in our culture, we are so in our culture, we are often rewarded for things that are actually harmful for us. And it can create quite the conundrums in a lot of social dynamics, or maybe it's your job or your career or your family or the demand of anything. Maybe the weather is treacherous. Maybe there's different situational events that are taking place right now that are taking a lot of consumption of your energy, or maybe it appears as though this demand is unavoidable and you're getting to this point where you're depleted and wondering, where am I going to be able to create slack for myself in this already, oh my God, dense, demanding life? And the truth is, yes, this is promoted by our popular culture at this time to stay busy and constantly be on demand and constantly be producing, and to always maintain this image and this level of activity that therefore translates into our version of what we believe is success. And then maybe we'll have satisfaction if we can only accomplish this entire list of things. I know of myself that I've struggled with sensory input. It's been an oddball thing that's set me apart from a lot of people that I feel are maybe perhaps the way that they perceive is, it's undeniably different, but some of us have higher sensitivity to certain stimuli. For the longest time, I could not understand why can't anyone else understand this? Am I really broken? Am I weird? Am I whatever? I was constantly comparing myself to the others to try to make sense of things. And while it is helpful to have statistics, while it does help to summarize or categorize or better define and label and analyze and differentiate and intellectualize all this stuff, it does help to have that information, but I'm telling you, what's more important than that information is you yourself tuning in to the connection with your own personal energy to be able to truly and clearly understand, how am I feeling? What is going on with me right now? What's consuming my thought? Where's my energy going? How does my body feel? Am I steady? Am I feeling balanced? Is life feeling chaotic? Can I only see what's outside of myself? Is it difficult to find that internal connection? Sometimes, because we are so involved up here in this constant demanding culture, that I fear we are detaching more and more from that personal connection with the self and with this like whole collected working of self, because it is not something that you can segment into simply intellectual, simply physical, simply this, simply that, make it easy, put a label on it, one and done. This is an ongoing, collaborative, beautifully faceted thing. And it's difficult to describe because it contains parts that are literally untouchable. How do you locate that? Especially with such a dense, approach where we're seeking answers and we think that's what we're looking for. It was a surprise to me to find out that by easing up, I was then able to understand. And where I get so much anxiety and I have this rapid, tense, intense surge pumping through me at times, it feels incapacitating. And wow, there are aspects of this that were justified when I would take action to try to alleviate this intensity in me. I imagined myself as this steaming kettle, and I imagined that I needed to run as fast as I could and just burn it all up and get it all out. And I'm so hot and freaking intense right now. This isn't working. I need to let it out so I can give myself a little bit more space on the inner parts, and that way I'd be able to breathe and be able to slow down. The craziest thing was, I think that was initially perhaps helpful because I had not known the proper validation or understanding to recognize that connection with self. So when I was more focused in the realm of social comparison to try to make sense of this, the validation was more helpful for me. So if I would turn on some loud raging metal and just thrash and freak out and do anything, yes, that was relieving because the energy embodied in the music and in what I was doing, the actions and the expressive nature of that energy, it was validation. It was helping me to understand how to love myself, even though it could have appeared very violent and chaotic. It's that's that initial connected piece. I can see how it held value in that time frame in my life. And now I'm beginning to understand that approach will not always work for me. Because if I am dipping into this realm where I'm feeling like a steaming kettle and I feel this rise and I feel this craziness in me, and it's not really, the steaming kettle might not be the appropriate metaphor, because that feels more like the pitta, which is that directed piece, which would make sense. But I think the reason it gets complicated is because there are so many elements of anxiety, so much confusion, this instability. So if you are out there going 100 miles an hour, but you don't even know where you're going and you're just erratic, that is a dangerous situation. So the difference is that if it were rooted in that pitta dosha and you're more in your fire, then the direction is there, then the security and stability are there. So where you put that energy would have actually a very, it would look very different for a person in that kind of an arrangement or a situation. Goodness, I am getting a little bit off topic all the time, but there's so much I want to say. I've already been talking for 25 minutes. Okay. Get it back on track. Where was I at here? So if I'm having anxiety, let's just go back to this. A great example of the vata, it's a distractibility. So I can understand how this is a flaw for me. Some people just seem to think it's a cute, quirky thing. Sometimes maybe they just get a little bit of a serving of it. But if this is your lifestyle, I can promise there are challenges no matter who you are. So things are never just as they seem upon our first glance. We need to understand there's so much more to this. And every single person is a unique, like, everything, okay? The thing about Ayurveda is that it's going to recognize that uniqueness. There's no one size fits all with this. There's no cookie cutter answer. But it helps us to then kind of like fine tune our awareness of the truth of what these problems really are that we're experiencing, or helping us to, I guess, gather a sense of ownership within ourself and our organism. It's just, we are constantly learning externally and internally. This is an infinite, like, deep dive if you are able, to continue on that path. And sometimes for some reason the path may change, and that does happen. I mean, really what it's about is learning how to understand your path, learning how to optimize your movement, the way of being, everything that we're doing, because this life is going to require so much maintenance every single day. So I talked about the Pitta and the Vata, but the other dosha that I should mention in this video is the Kapha. I am like, my heart is beaming right now because I believe that in the closer circle of people that I see on the regular, I have such a variety of these different doshas reflecting in their character and in their ways of being that I feel so very blessed for the influence, and it is important. The me with that anxiety coming on, feeling unstable, what I really need in those times. So thinking about the element of air, the qualities of air in the Vata composition, very dry, very cold. There's a brittle nature. There's a lightness, and there's like this very erraticness. That's where I'm starting to become like imbalanced because I am not properly, I'm either leaning too far one direction or another or something. I'm lacking the nourishment that I need for my optimal self. So to know what I really need to feel better, I think that idea of like thrashing and running it out and everything, because it feels so quick and flighty and like there's no, like, it just feels so erratic that it's high energy and it's difficult, it's volatile. It can be beautiful, but to get it in a range where it's more effective to live and function and like effectively get progress on that path. Like, this is what I'm saying is like, I've had to learn. Sometimes it is recognizing what is true and then understanding in balance. A lot of times this is what we need to think about is not necessarily the validation. Like attracts like. If I am flight and I'm quick movement, indecisive, and I just continue to add into that, it's not really going to alleviate the nature of it or help to guide me into a better direction. It's going to reinforce it. It's going to probably lead to some sense of burnout and depletion. And then that's when like I'm absolutely floored and required to rest. And it's so wild. as I'm overcoming this sickness now, it's like I've had this mucus in me. I've had this slow down. I've had to. I didn't have, like, it's like where the imbalance, there were so many things going on at once where it's like my intellectual self was like criticizing me and beating me down. And then I'm having all of this hardship within my own self based on how I'm able to perceive the meaning in this, or what it's going to lead to, or anything that I'm assuming in that time, which is obviously a fabrication based in fear, based in all of this. Is it reality? The further away from it, the true, clear, like, I'm not going to say there's going to be one objective truth, but I think I like to call it kind of like a trap. We can trap ourselves into ways of being. The patterns exist, or have existed in our lives, and we're trying to make best sense of things. I mean, sometimes the question of why is this happening, or if you don't want it to be happening, so you're like trying to oppose you're creating another conflict, and now even more stress, right? Anytime we're in opposition to ourselves, we are not in harmony. So there's definitely a mental element to this. There's definitely a physical element to this. The thing about Vata and that dry, brittle, flighty thing, it's like what we really need to achieve that balance would be like a warmth, moisture, grounding. Find earth, eat some like nourishing like root vegetable soup, cozy up, take a rest. So it's going to kind of challenge our own instinct. If this is the condition we're in currently, and I know myself to understand this. Now remember, everyone is different as well, but I think we can comprehend how water balances fire, and if we're too hot, we can cool ourselves. So when the pitta, that's the fire and direction, but sometimes due to many different reasons, it could be so many different contributions. It could be the people you're working with, or if you're in a leadership position, oftentimes are pitta dosha types. And most of the time we are all undeniably some combination, but where we fall dominant, I think that one important thing to remember is this may be your natural composition, but we cannot forget that's not the only thing that matters. You may have all your life been this person, but if you suddenly move to a different place, or resources that are accessible to you change, or something dramatic happens, like it's going to shift things to the point where these today influences matter too. So there's no excuse. It's not like this is how it always was, or this is just what it is. We're not making excuses, because what that's going to do is just keep you trapped in the cycle. Truly, we always have a choice, and today is another day, and here we are. So what choices are we making today? That also matters. It really, really does. If we can recognize where we've come from, and we can recognize where we're at today, we know who we are, and to tune into the self, to understand those needs. And if we're working to alleviate symptoms, or if we're currently struggling or having like a physical illness, like this sickness, which is a great way for me to talk a little bit more about kapha, because the mucus, the excessive mucus, I feel my body slow. I'm suddenly kapha. Wow, how did that happen? I have a theory, okay? Being my vata dominant self, I believe my doshas are more of a combination dominant in vata, and then I'm like a good portion of pitta as well. I do have the kapha, but it's nowhere near the other two. And so there have been periods of my life where kapha was dominant, and I think that was intentionally there to smother down the pitta, because I was destructive and I needed. If I didn't slow down, I don't think I would be here today. which is interesting to add a new level of meaning to all of this. The depression, all of these struggles, like looking back now, I needed to be depressed. Otherwise, I would have erratically likely met my demise at a very young chronological age. So just a little bit more self-reflection on this because it's happening all the time. The whole thing is like to be true, you know, to truly acknowledge and understand, it requires like the real thing, the real acknowledgement. Like any moments that we're denying ourselves the truth, or if it seems too hard to say, it's like, okay, avoidance, like that's going to keep us suppressed from our own development. It's only of benefit to you. It doesn't have to be for the world, but just understand too that like the more we do talk about these things, if you feel comfortable, literally, I've had influences in my life that have saved my faith for humanity in those times where I could have seriously, it's a delicate place to exist. If you ever find yourself in that place, or if you ever notice that there's someone opening up to you, take the time to hear them, take the time to listen, because this is really what is meaningful in this high demand, forever, whatever society. My goodness. Acknowledge that. Acknowledge the value in what's real. It might not be easy. But the truth is, like, that doesn't mean it's not worthy. Often, the most challenging things are going to be life's greatest teachers. They're the greatest opportunities for us to grow, for us to learn and make a great impact. I mean, if you had a chance to add something, which we all do inevitably, that's probably another discussion, because whether we realize it or not, our influences are contributing to this greater whole. And some people really like to separate themselves from that or deny it or whatever. But if we exist here today, in my opinion, I mean, I don't think it's something we really can deny. There are even people out there living off the grid, whatever. I don't do social media. I don't do this and then. Okay, but you're still alive. You are still an organism that is literally cycling elements through you. You are literally composed of these elements yourself. So to deny, I don't understand. I can't make sense of some of that, but I think for some, for whatever reason you feel you need to detach from the whole of society, I mean, you have your reasons. I am not here to judge. I may or may not understand. I am curious to learn. So, I mean, of course, you know, when people begin to share with me, I want to know, because I believe that the more we can gather as far as perspectives in this life, it just continuously builds on a more comprehensive view. It begins to up the resolution of the image, and we begin to gather clarity. And it's not about what's right and wrong. It's about understanding. It's about merging the gaps. It's about like recognizing like, whoa, it's like our society as a whole, the mass of people in this collective conscious and physical like existence, you know, it's like we are reaching like a disharmony as a whole. So where are we at? You know, we can do something about this. You can do something about this. I can do something about this. We are doing something about this. But sometimes we feel more pushed by the forces of life then we are able to recognize our very personal and decisive, conscious, intentional, embodied role. So the more we're embodied within and our connection to self, the stronger our energies become, the more clarity we're able to comprehend of this greater tapestry of life. And then I think that the decisions we make will fall better in line with that harmony. Because if you're willingly choosing disharmony, there's a deeper deeper questions to be examining in this. And for anybody who's been diagnosed with mental health disorders, or perhaps they've been labeled as this or that, or it isn't even, if you've been segmented away from the whole as different in any kind of way, it's already going to be starting to contribute to this detachment of the greater whole. Do we not realize how this promotes the isolation and alienation of that person? It creates a division. And so divisions are going to continually contribute to the disharmony. And granted, the cycles in life move from harmony to disharmony. They move from order to chaos, etc. This, the yin, the yang, the balance. Things can remain balanced and stable within a range, and we can have a say in what it is. Everything we allow ourselves to consume matters. From the thoughts and the content and what you're allowing yourself sensationally, the environments, the people, the food, the vitamins, whatever it is. Just to consider that balance, if I am, okay, back to the kappa, because I really should describe a little bit more about this, at least in this video. So, for example, I'll describe a friend of mine. She is very kappa dominant, okay? She's very intellectual. She's an inspiration to me. Her pace may appear to be slow. In the past, what my metaphor to describe this was like a barge, or a train, because you're so heavy, but the power behind that building up in the movement takes a lot of preparation. But once that movement is happening, the likeliness that it's just quickly and erratically going to change direction, or suddenly screech to a halt, or that some other factor is going to come in and influence it easily. No. There is a beautiful strength in the deeply rooted earth and the solidity. It is very solid. Kappa typically have just like this very nurturing quality to them. A softness, a bulk, a density, a thickness, and this is mentally and physically, not just body shapes, whatever. There's a reason for these things. The way that our lifestyles and ways of being influence our bodies is more obvious, right? We might mistakenly get so connected on this idea of the physical thing and aim at that as the problem. And it's wreaking havoc in our mental, it's wreaking havoc in our emotional, and it's causing you to want to detach from the self because you're not happy with the self. Like ideas of beauty that are promoted in this world today. It's just a damn shame. Sometimes I think about this, how influential are people? Because to be able to truly go against the grain, this is not an easy path. If you find yourself questioning, you are not alone. In fact, I encourage more questioning. Gosh dang it, let's open up on these conversations, because the fear, I can't get started on that topic. There's a lot to say, okay. But the beautiful thing is, there's no right or wrong answer. There is not one perfect body. Everybody has one. Yes, we have the cards we've been dealt. Where does your vibe come into this? Because if you're not satisfied with yourself, if you're at odds with yourself, nothing that we're able to put out there is going to be as truth and genuine as if we hold ourselves in a capacity of acceptance and love. Because the more resistance we're creating within, it's gonna kind of alter whatever it is we're trying to get out. And that's just the truth. Even if the intention is there, you cannot deny the energy you're holding. So you carry yourself in this way. The influence goes so much greater than the words. We can curate a specific script to say. We can edit the photos. We can whatever, make it try to look like anything. But that's not really what matters. To truly embody it is very in the feeling of it. To truly believe it, the thought and feeling on it needs to align. This is how it begins to make more sense. But if for some reason we're cut off from our own feelings, or if for some reason we're at odds with ourselves or not trusting of our own intellect, it's going to create a lot more little individual hurdles before we'll get to that path. So, and I think that with all the fluctuations, we might fall back into those ways of being. It doesn't matter. Like, the whole thing is, you'll find yourself anywhere on your own personal journey. There is so much respect I have for every single one of us, because none of these paths are the same. But here we are coinciding in this moment in time, in the great tapestry of life, weaving our threads and creating something. And like, you have a choice right now to do something. So I get so swept up in this stuff. And so this is really demonstrating of the challenges that I'm trying to work towards my own greater harmony. I want to be able to share this. I want to be able to share the vulnerabilities. I'm not sure who this could reach or anything, but it really is changing my life. And I care so much about people, and I understand just how hard it can be to feel so alone and to be so lost. Like, wow, what the heck now? What now? Take that breath, check into the self, think about what's going on. Think about you, think about your feelings. Okay? Because it all starts here. You can't really be so focused out all in all these different directions if it's getting to be too much, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're struggling, if you're having trouble right now. Breath is always a good thing, and it really helps us. Ooh, it's kind of like washing out just like get a little bit of air in there. If you got burning popcorn, the smoke is hovering in the air, you're choking, you can't breathe, open up that window, get outside, do something, get some fresh air. Okay? You don't need to sit here and suffocate yourself because you just don't realize you have another choice. Breathe. The reason why this is so important, and I should probably do a whole different segment just on breath. Where our physical self exists and is holding of its own personal body conscious, and where our cognitive thoughts exist and how we use them and how we make sense of anything, and where our dominant energy sits within ourselves as this vessel, as we are navigating multiple dimensions. It's like so much is happening at once, and a lot of times it can feel so out of our control. And undeniably, the majority of what is happening is beyond your control. If we are thinking in quantities or anything, even the massive scale of these energetic fields that surround our planet, undeniable. So you're not going to change that. That is a useless place to be putting your precious and sacred energy. First of all, recognize that energy is sacred. It is literally the like material that is going to allow your life. It is required, the movement is required to continue that life. We have a say. You are not lost. You're right here. You're in yourself. You're in your physical body. Find that. If it's a struggle to feel grounding, you can begin to explore. Find your physical body first. Tap yourself. Feel yourself. You're here. We're here. This is a physical, real reality. Okay? Begin there and notice what happened when I touched myself. What did that feel like? Did that do something? Are you feeling a little bit of a shiver going up your spine? Is something else happening? Notice. Tune in. Breathe. If you're calm enough to take a deep breath. If you're anxious, maybe it would be more helpful to take a breath of fire. Or just the more simple, and I forgot what the other one was, but this is a 2 in. There are so many designs for breath that can help to guide us back, reset that central nervous system, etc. Whatever breath works, do it, okay? Because you need to connect with yourself. You make a conscious choice to breathe, and you can. You can experiment with that breath all you want, and I encourage that too, because it is so personal that for us to know how to breathe, that is on us. It is going to require a lot of self-exploration to understand the potential of the breath. But just even if it's a shallow breath, even if it's anything you're capable of, making the choice to do it is what matters. So when you take that breath, no longer is it just the automatic nervous system functions like our heartbeat and blinking, etc. We don't necessarily put much conscious thought into those things as they function on their own. It does not require our complex reasoning or thinking. But when we do put our complex reasoning and thinking into those places, we are activating the connecting piece. And this is going to bridge that intellectual and that more heartfelt and emotional. It's going to help to merge and create a greater fluidity for ourselves within our organism. Energy will then begin to flow more easily because we are not creating resistance against our own flow. There's this internal flow happening within this body, underneath the skin. You don't know what that feels like, because it is my sensational experience, right? But there's also this emission of energy that when you walk into a room, the effect of your presence, there is an effect. Just notice. The influences it is mind-blowing to me. But I think a lot of us are very distracted a lot of the time, or we're seeking distraction to try to help cope with the difficulties within. Okay, this is getting a little bit, if we're having trouble coping within, if it's chaotic within, the answer is not to then focus every energy outward. That inward chaos is where you are needed. So let's listen to our body's natural cues. Let's listen and find out the condition we're in. And then let's think about what we truly want. Because if we can create the balance needed, and if I'm hot and red in the face and exploding, and I'm able to take a cool, soft, like relaxing moment to help to create balance, it's going to lessen that heat. It's going to bring it back into a moderate level that is more efficient and functional. And so, and no matter where you are on that spectrum or on that scale, or even if you're just in this curious exploratory, like we're always able, no matter where you're at, it is possible, and it can help. It can continuously help. And even if you're at 100%, best, perfect, yes, you did it. You're like feeling optimal. You're at your highest potential. Just remember, as time goes, change is happening. As things happen, the flux and flow are just inevitable, and nobody is ever going to remain perfect forever at 100% always. Like, I just can't fathom that much of an absolute. I think we can get dang near close, but again, it's a lot of maintenance. It's a lot of recognition. It's a lot of the ongoing practice of valuing ourselves, understanding our needs, and allowing ourselves to actually meet those needs without guilt, without shame, because the minute you're adding that into it, you're actually harming yourself. And this is not going to help then. It's not, self-care doesn't really help if you're beating yourself up the whole time. It's just counterproductive. It's just like spinning in circles. You're not getting anywhere with that. It's not going, I'm frustrated with myself sometimes because I find that I fall into those patterns where it's like, oh, but you should be answering that phone. And you should have already gotten this, and this done. And da, 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 da. Do you think that's helping me right now? No, it doesn't. What really would help? Allowance, self-compassion, self-care, breathing, centering, understanding my needs, understanding the disharmony, and seeking the nourishment that is needed, giving the love that is needed. Love is medicine. Everything in this world that we take in is either medicine to us and to our soul that will aid in the process of this functional life and the spiritual growth and everything that we are in all of these dimensions. It's either medicine or it's poison. So the poison is the harmful thing. And the poison could be a thought. The poison could be sticking around in questionable energies. The poison could be many, many things. Just understand, only you will know. So building into trusting the self and understanding what that means, that's its own process. The beautiful thing is that the influence the potential we have in our influence and in the way that we are able to practice self-care and self-compassion and self-love, and how we go out into that world and embody that energy, simply in being, you are already distributing that medicine as a beacon, as a living example, as an emitter of this harmonious energy. You don't actually have to go out of your way to try to do it. It just is. And I think that that's when we are reaching into that greater potential and dipping into our higher divine. And so I've had a lot of glimpses of these sensations and these understandings, but again, with the constant flux, being sick, everything, the answer was rest. I think the reason I had that problem and got sick in the first place was because I was not attuned to my own body's sensations. I was too cold. I was too erratic. I was too much in the vata that I failed to recognize the need for simple things like putting on a jacket and staying hydrated. And of course, nobody wants to hear that. And of course, because it's just too simple. It's almost insulting based on the complexity of the experience itself. You're going to, I was imagining how I felt about, how I responded to my own suggestive, man, okay, I can see how I was failing to nourish myself the way I needed at that time. Prioritizing the sensational experience, prioritizing all of these other things, not giving the honest compassion that would have sustained me longer. It was we live and we learn. And I'm fine-tuning and adjusting based on these new experiences. And I just encourage everybody, to keep on giving yourself that love, keep on tuning in, and give yourself a little bit of grace as we're figuring this stuff out, because we're always learning. And it's incredible that you are learning, and I commend you for that. And the world needs more of this. So come on, you're doing great. I appreciate that. And I cannot even believe this connection. Thank you. And I think that'll be the end of this video. So thank you so much for watching. If you're still watching, I can't even believe it. This has been an hour-long discussion, me talking about what began as Ayurveda and dishing off into many branches of side stories and whatnot. But what I'm realizing is maybe it's okay if I jump around a little bit. I think it's the meaning and the heart in it that matters, and I'm here for this. And I'm glad you're here too. So, all right, bye.